We are now live.
All
Hi,
right.
this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest. Her name is Kelly Galindo, and she is a filmmaker who made a film about child sex trafficking. The title of the film is 26 Seconds, and I watched it in its entirety. Pretty harrowing material. She also has a YouTube channel with a lot of background information and additional information and videos on this kind of scourge that happens transnationally, and she can talk more about that. She has a project. Her website is 26secondsdoc.com, so you can check out all her backgrounds and her work. She can talk more about that. So Kelly Galindo, are you there?
Yes. Hi, William. Nice to meet you, and thank you so much for having me on your platform.
Awesome. Well, thanks for agreeing to the interview. I know you're friends with Doug Kramer, and I saw this documentary. I've interviewed another author, Josh Peck, about his sex trafficking documentary. So I felt like I reached out to Doug and said, hey, see if Kelly would come on and talk about this. So I'm glad that you're engaged in this project. Can you talk about your background and what got you interested in the problem of child sex trafficking?
Yeah. Well, I was an actress for years. That's how I know Doug, from the Actor Studio. And then when I was like 38, I was like, okay, I better do something else with my life. So I went back to school and got my master's, and then I became a professor in film and then I was really lucky. Right after I graduated, I got my job at Chapman University, and I've been there like 17 years. It's crazy. I can't believe it's been that long. But through that time, and my job there is I teach directors how to work with actors, and I teach directing and visual storytelling. And so my time there at Chapman, I realized that I had the camera equipment, the editing suite. So I knew that I could save some money working on a project. I just was waiting for the right project, just because from being an actress and also directing theater, when you do a project, it takes a big chunk of your life. And at this point in my life, we have very limited time here on this planet, and I want to do something that matters and that will make the world a better place after I'm gone. Because the great thing, as you know, about film is it lives forever. So, but my experience in Hollywood, I think also, obviously there was I wasn't trafficked. I even talked with Doug Kramer about this. I said, actresses aren't trafficked because they do have a choice. There might be some cases out there where, somebody raped them, or and I was talking to Doug about this, about the Me Too movement, and I'm kind of now, because I want to retract maybe some of my thoughts, because I just heard oh God, what's her name? She's
McGowan, Rose McGowan.
Yes, and I'm a big fan of hers. I think she's so brave to come out, and so I might have not taken it as seriously. But what I was trying to get across to Doug, because I've interviewed hundreds of girls, from 9 different countries, and being trafficked, like really trafficked, like where they beat you and where they starve you and where they take your passport away and where they...
Yeah, you call it slavery. You use the word slavery. A lot of people are too afraid to make that linguistic correlation, but I think it's slavery. It's a form of slavery.
Absolutely. It's modern day slavery, sex trafficking. And I'm actually, William, really upset, because when I started out on this journey, I had seen an episode on Dateline that was talking about basically pedophiles going to Thailand, and it was Westerners, Australians, Europeans, Americans. They basically go there and they rape children and get away with it. And I was horrified. And so I knew in that moment, that's the project I want to do. But it took me a long time before, because I had no idea how I was going to get access and be able to do that. And then like 5 years after I saw that episode, I was at my niece's baby shower, and her friend walked in, and she had a shirt on that said Destiny Rescue. And I said, what's that, Jennifer? And she said, oh, I work for a organization that rescues children from Thailand. And I said, oh my gosh, I said, I so want to do a project on this. She goes, well, I'm the assistant to the international director here in the US. Do you want to meet him? I said, yes. So Excuse me, let me get a drink of water.
Right. So
Sorry.
you have all those. You have a lot of different meetings with different organizations on your website and also on your YouTube channel. So you're communicating with a variety of, and have communicated and recorded interviews with people doing this type of work, stopping child sex trafficking or sex trafficking in general.
Yeah. So what I did is I I partnered with Destiny Rescue. That was the first organization, and I went to Thailand and Cambodia. And at first, this whole project was going to be a short documentary on sex tourism. And when I got back, I edited the film, the short, and it's done really well. It's won like 20 awards.
Right.
Which, yeah.
Can give it a award. So kudos to you. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. So that was exciting. And but after I filmed in Thailand, what happened is each organization, each nonprofit, and they're and I want to be clear because I want to talk about this later. I've partnered with nonprofit Christian organizations. I'm not saying all organizations are bad, but there are a lot of crooked nonprofits. The Clinton Foundation is one. I mean, they got billions of dollars and they only built 6 houses in Haiti. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is not great. The Red Cross is not great. And I hate to call them out, and I hope to God you don't get kicked off YouTube.
Well, no, it doesn't matter. But I mean, there's actually overseers. There shouldn't be, but there's overseers to these nonprofits, and they grade them depending on how much money they take in and how much they give out. I can't remember the organization that does it, but some are very shocking. That some of these people are taking in tons of nonprofit money and
you know what the Red Cross does?
Yeah,
they keep 97% to pay, the
pay huge salaries, yeah,
and 3% goes to the actual cause.
Yeah, it's outrageous. The original Red Cross people are spinning in their graves.
And the Salvation Army is incredible. They're completely opposite. They give out 97% and only keep 3%. So I want to do a shout out to the Salvation Army. So if anybody wants to donate, but I personally, I was telling Doug that, these nonprofits, especially the first one, Destiny Rescue, they did a huge background check on me, and it took a long time before they approved for me to go with them because I was going to film undercover with their rescue agents and also have access to interview the survivors that are in their restoration program. And so it took a long time before they approved it, and as I think it should. And but I also was being very particular in what organizations I wanted to partner with. So
so you were selective too. So you self-selected.
Yeah. I was selective too. But the great thing is that the each organization, when I would film, they would introduce me to another one because they all know each other. And then I would, and so the arms were kind of open at that point. I didn't ever again have any background checks. I guess the first one was all, they trusted the first.
Once you were in the network.
Yeah. So, and then I was off to another country, and then this project turned into global sex trafficking as it is. It is in every city, every state, and every country. It is at the lower levels. It is at the high echelon elite level.
Right.
Epstein
levels. Yeah. Epstein levels. Yeah.
There's syndicate level, and then it comes down to, in the little neighborhoods with pimps, just like drugs, it's the same thing. Right. And, but it is, when I started out on this journey, I made a deal with God. I said, God, I will pay for production, which I did. And I said, but you have to somehow miraculously have production, post-production funds come in. And so I'm not, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm raising funding to finish the feature. But in the meantime, I did the short, and I also started editing these 5 to 15 minute videos for the YouTube channel because I wanted to do a few things. One, I wanted to highlight the issue, create awareness on global sex trafficking and sex trafficking right here in the US particularly, because most people are shocked and don't realize it happens here. I also knew that a lot of these, a lot of the footage and a lot of these organizations won't fit in my feature doc. So I wanted to be able to highlight those organizations because they're doing incredible work in prevention, rescue, restoration, or reintegration.
Right. So I was surprised to see the group of stewardesses are helping out, ex-SEALs. So there's people, really wonderful people working on that.
Incredible. And that was another thing. William, because, before I started the film, of course, I did my research, and, because there's a lot of films out there on sex trafficking, but a lot of them some of them are good, but a lot of them, like Nefarious was very good. But there's a lot of them that are just doing it for the shock values, kind of like that little film that was released on Netflix called Cuties. Well,
Right.
that's like, there were 10-year-olds pole dancing. That's like glorifying child pornography and pedophilia. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy to me.
But they were supposedly exposing it, but in my opinion, engaging in it in the same time.
That's
like
right.
Some of those, I couldn't get through it. I was
That's
like,
right.
wow, this is incredible.
That's right.
Wow.
And so in that moment, I knew, I don't think Netflix will ever buy my project, because I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm exposing darkness and evil, and I am highlighting these nonprofit Christian organizations that are rescuing and restoring and reintegrating these girls. And in my experience, and I've been on this project 5 years, there is no way a child that has been trafficked with that kind of trauma can get out or be healed without God. Without God, it's not possible, in my opinion.
And there was one thing on your YouTube of like the girls are screaming every night, crying out for help. Like it's just harrowing, like what they have to go to. And they're children. They're like 11, 12, at least one.
William, from the beginning, I even told God, I'm open. Like I learned this from, the actor studio and from my training as an actor, which is stay in the process. Don't push for the result. And so that's what I chose to do with this film. I knew that I was learning, and, I'm editing later. You tell the story later, I was just going undercover with the rescue agents and then interviewing survivors. And
what was that like when you were going to some of these places? You went to Thailand. Can you talk about the places you went and what it was like to be on site?
I was my first trip was Thailand and Cambodia. Then because teaching, I was only filming in the summers and the winter time. So that was a summer trip. And then the following winter I went to Iraq, and that's when ISIS was still there. Mosul hadn't been liberated yet. Where I was at, I have to say, I did stay in the hotel room for about 5 days. I never left. When we arrived, I interviewed the very first day. Soldiers, picked us up. We went to the hotel. The next morning, we were driving from the capital all the way to Kurdistan, and it was a long drive. So, but in the process, one of the commanders of the Kurdish army was stationed in a village that had been liberated. They went in and killed ISIS there. And anyhow, so I interviewed him, and he was so great. Because it was a surprise interview. I didn't even know I had it. Just people said, "Oh, the commander's here. Do you want to interview him?" Yes. And he was incredible. He, at that time, he had said, and I have it on tape, and I can't wait for it to be released. But he said the Obama administration was the responsible for ISIS, and that they were hopeful for the Trump administration. And it was really surreal when I was there, because the pastor that I went with, he said, "Kelly," we had to go to checkpoints, of course. He goes, "Don't talk," because he knows I talk a lot. And I said, "Okay." But when I would arrive, the first thing they would say is, "Do you like Trump?" And I mean, like, they asked me a question, I had to answer it. And I said, "Yeah, I love Trump." And my pastor was like, "Oh my God, we're going to get killed." But it was so surreal. They love Trump in Kurdistan anyways. I mean, the Kurdish people are incredible. The Kurdish army, these are incredible people. And they're very, they live in Kurdistan. Religions live, they respect one another. They have very much of a Western mentality. Like, they have Catholics, they have Muslims, they have Christians, they have Yazidis, and they live in harmony. So he was telling me what ISIS was doing. This is like radical, this is not the Muslim way, is what he was telling me. These were radicals. And he believed completely opposite in what ISIS was doing to these women and children. And
what were they doing?
oh, they went into villages. It was genocide. They killed the men. They abducted the women. Older women they made labor slaves. The younger children, the little boys, they made ISIS fighters, and the little girls they made sex slaves. And I interviewed a little girl 7 years old in Iraq, and she was already rescued for 2 years. So they were molesting her from, not just molesting her, trading her. I mean, she had like 6 traffickers, right? I mean, they trafficked amongst each other. People ask me that all the time. They
Like
say,
a harem or something, right? Like a harem.
yeah. Well, they would like, you know, if they had to go and fight, they would lend them out to other fighters, and or they would actually sell them. And so people ask me all the time, what are the similarities and what are the differences of trafficking? And the similarity is the same always. It's all about money and control. Money and control, period. And mostly money. It's a $150 billion a year industry, and that's only the numbers we know. That we don't know the numbers online. We don't know the numbers with the underground tunnels of child trafficking. We have no idea what those numbers are. So it's far greater than $150 billion. So when traffickers realized that they could make money off young women and children and not do any jail time, like they would get more jail time if they sold drugs and guns and weapons. It's much easier. So as always, so the question is, what are the similarities? It's the vulnerability of the most vulnerable, right? It is, and it's control, and it's about money.
It's poverty, but it's poverty on the victims, right? They're almost always from impoverished backgrounds, or
and then here's the differences. Exactly what you're saying. In the most poverty-stricken countries like Cambodia and India, their own parents will sell them for survival.
Yes.
And you know, and they really don't think they're doing anything wrong because it's survival for them. And in fact, they feel very lucky, like they hit the jackpot when they have a little girl. And I don't want to say that boys aren't trafficked too, because they are. It's just that more girls are.
Wow. So you've been to Cambodia, Iraq.
No, not Iran. Cambodia, Thailand, Iraq. I was in Iraq. Iraq, India, East Africa, 3 countries in East Africa, Uganda, Tanzania, and
what was happening in Africa?
Oh my God, William. No, okay. It was a very interesting trip because East Africa was my last, it was the last countries I filmed in. And when I got there and was interviewing the girls, they're madams, and usually it's a like it's an aunt or it's somebody they know, tell these girls, because it's the vulnerable, they're poor. They tell these girls, you can make money overseas as a maid in a bar, blah, blah, blah. They get there. Another trafficker is on the other end in Thailand or China or wherever they take them to. And they take away their passports and push them out on the streets. And now they're in a country without their passport. And then the traffickers tell them, you owe us the money for flying you here. And then they tell them it's like $7,000 or $10,000, some crazy thing. So what was surreal about that trip is that I started filming in Thailand, and then when I was in my last trip in East Africa, they were all sent to Thailand. So it was like full circle. Isn't that weird? Mm-hmm. They were all sent to Thailand. They weren't trafficked in their own country. Now, what is happening in their own country, which is horrifying, and it's happening everywhere, but it's just in plain sight in Africa. You'll see dead children on the side of the street. They kill them and get their organs. They're trafficking them for organs.
Wow. So it's still happening to this day. Organ trafficking.
Oh, wow. William, it's happening in this country. Do you know that there is I watched this, I sent it to Doug, actually. I forget the name of it. I think it's called some Evil or Darkness. I'll get the name of it for you. It's a filmmaker from Denmark, I believe. He actually interviewed a trafficker from that area, Denmark, Switzerland, somewhere over there. This trafficker is specific for elites, very wealthy people that want to rape babies. babies. They even will abduct girls or, befriend girls and have them make babies to be born into this life. Now, those babies are often, no, well, they always are, but they'll break their little ribs from having sex with them, and they die.
I heard that there was some kind of thing like that in Ukraine where they were farming babies, and then people from Asia would fly in, and just, it's disgusting. And then the Owl of God had that same story. Like they were baby making these women, and they don't even know where the babies are.
They have a team ready to take any organs that can be used.
Wow.
Now, there's also men from this interview that I watched. There are men, they want 2-year-olds or 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds, whatever. And so they can traffic these children over and over and over and over and over again until they're finally, they're completely broken, spiritually, emotionally, but their bodies are broken. And then they'll kill them and get the organs.
Wow, that's sick.
So, William, we are living, I think this has been happening for a long time. It's just now coming to the surface. I started this journey and I said, God, I want to be in the process. You revealed to me, it's your project, and what you revealed to me, that's what's going to be in the project. Right?
Right.
So at first because I had partnered with over 40 nonprofits, and I'm still going to do that. I'm going to highlight these nonprofits that I know that are doing great work. They're doing God's work. I absolutely am going to highlight the nonprofits, because people need to know who to donate to, who to give their time, to give their skills, so I am going to do that. But I also, because about a few months ago, I wasn't even praying, but I clearly heard God say, clearly, like it came out of nowhere. He said, I want you to include in your documentary what I'm about to reveal. And I said, but God, I mostly filmed like nonprofits. And he goes, exactly. These children are going to need to be restored.
Wow.
So big things are happening in the world. I have so many friends that say, oh, it's an exciting time to be alive because, because it's evil against, it's light against dark. It's evil against good, right? And we know who wins. God does win. He will win. It's just that there's a lot of ugliness before we get there.
Right.
And when my friends tell me that, I don't agree, because I've seen ugly, ugly things. I don't think it's an exciting time to be alive. Maybe I will when we see the glory of God, when we see sex trafficking for children end. I just don't know if it's going to end in my lifetime. But have you
ever heard of the story of Epstein when he sat down with Virginia Giuffre and asked her to have a child? He sat down with Maxwell in Virginia and said, we want you to have a baby. Like something like that. There's not a lot of evidence of like child sex. Well, there's definitely evidence of child trafficking with Epstein, but nobody knows where all his money went. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was bringing in kids from Eastern Europe, South America, Venezuela, and selling them and marketing them. They
absolutely were on his island. Guess who has a neighboring island?
Biden?
Yes. Guess who else has a neighboring island?
I think it's the head of Virgin Records. What was his name?
Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg. Oh, wow.
There are what are they called? Those
the little Bahamas or
those submarines. Sorry.
Oh, right, yeah.
Submarines that go from island to island, but they're trafficking children there. What happened to all those missing children in Haiti?
Right. There's all kinds of weird things that happened. There were stories about Epstein and Maxwell trafficking kids up north because it's close to Venezuela, and some poor poverty kids, they're gone. They don't know. Like, is it organ trafficking? Is it the same thing happening? Like super dark stuff happening, just
and
like you described with Epstein.
William. Yeah. This has nothing to do with politics, but we have a huge problem at the border because you know what that's about?
Sex trafficking.
You got that right.
Child sex trafficking. Kelly, there was an incredible video I saw. I'll try to post it in the show notes or somewhere, but it was of traffickers with drugged kids 4 or 5 years old, drugged to the gills.
Yeah.
And these cops are asking him, and they're clearly not they're not their parents. And these kids are just out. So they're drugged to be brought in for whatever reason. It is so sick. Like the Biden administration is complicit in all of this stuff. It is grotesque. It is evil. Oh my gosh.
The word is not complicit. The word is involved.
I mean, there's a lot of money. What the average person, I think if you broke down the organs in a person and sold them off, I think it's like the value's $150,000 or $200,000.
And that's what they do in the end after they've already made money selling babies and children.
Right.
This is sick.
Amber saw that too.
It is sick.
That same video.
You know, I just saw this interview with I think I shared it with you. A girl, Charlie Ward interviewed her, and she is a survivor from, oh dear, what's it called when they like
MK Ultra or something like that? Was that the one? Yeah.
Yes, that, and also satanic cult, and then that's when she was a child, and then and of course when she's no longer a child, what other life does she have? Or no, she go, you know, now she was being, you know, pimped out, right? But when she was a child, like 15, I mean, she was even trafficked younger than that, but at around 15, her trafficker took her to this underground world underneath the Getty Museum in LA, and that world runs to Universal, Disney, to Hollywood elite homes, to, you know, all throughout underground. And she said every form of transportation you can think of is under there. It's like a whole world. And guess who she met?
That's weird, but I mean, the Gettys themselves were involved in all kinds of very dark stuff. J. Paul Getty was very dark. Actually, he was the sponsor for Kenneth Anger. And he did all kinds of. They're all in the
satanic cult, William.
Get this.
All involved in the satanic cult.
This is a true story. J. Paul Getty Jr., his dad was a pre-epic. He said that his personal life was very on the far spectrum of sexuality, but his son, who used to do rebirth rituals in a tomb, like literally one of the richest people in the world, and he would be in contact with Kenneth Anger, an acolyte of Aleister Crowley. So it's there. There's connections, and then when you have that morality of like Satanism, then there's no moral boundaries.
There's a whole underground world in DC. You know, it travels from the Capitol to the White House to, you know, everywhere in DC. And we got a lot of cleanup to do. We got to get rid of a lot of evil darkness that's happening. And I can't take it when it's at the expense of children.
It's really harrowing. It's unbelievable. A lot of this stuff is happening. This is you right here. This is Can or Con. Indie Short Awards. There you are, right at the top of the list.
Oh, good.
That's really cool. 26 seconds. So I
might not be on the top anymore. Once I keep talking too much, you know, I'm going to get censored. And
yeah, well, you know, I mean, that's the thing is that a lot of these, I mean, it's in an odd way, the censorship is going to take people out of Egypt on an exodus to the promised land of freedom and other sites. So that's eventually, like, you're on Facebook and Twitter, man. Like you're getting mind control. They're censoring this stuff that's really important out of there.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into detail, but whenever somebody says, I'm going to go talk about this on Facebook, I'm like, do you know they're just going to manipulate it and gaslight it and put it into a box, and even your followers probably won't see it.
You know that I have friends, you know, founders of these organizations I've partnered with, who are doing good work. They're rescuing and restoring and reintegrating girls. They've been kicked off YouTube because it's sex trafficking. I'm going, and probably the only reason why I haven't been is because I don't have enough followers. You know, it's when you have a lot of followers is when they shut you down.
I got punted in January. Do you know what's really sick is somebody has done like there's like pseudo child porn on YouTube too that doesn't get censored.
Yeah.
And so it's not like it's not naked kids, but it's like all kinds of weird. I forgot that whole story, but they allow that. Also, there was a kid on Twitter who was being raped. He was 14, and it did not violate the terms of service of Twitter.
Oh, and guess what? Newsom, which they've cheated again.
Yeah,
there's no way that he won.
You're in Orange County. Supposedly, Orange County voted for Newsom for 52-47.
Oh yeah,
what
right.
A joke.
Oh yeah,
what
right. So he passed the law in California. I don't know if I think it's just California, where it's not rape if a child if there's only a 10-year difference.
Right.
Oh,
right.
So if the child's 10 and the man's 20, it's not rape?
Right.
What the?
No, it goes against all the things of statutory rape. That's the whole thing. So that statute, supposedly in California, I guess the federal statute probably does apply, but oh yeah, it's bad. It's so corrupt here. Also, you like giving somebody AIDS, a potentially lethal virus, is only a misdemeanor too, California.
It's
It's
and
really sick.
it does start with harsher with it's us, we the people, we to vote and so that we can vote in people that will present bills, because I believe sex trafficking can end in two ways. Prevention, meaning and I mean like way back prevention, like if you can provide people that are poor to be able to make a living, they won't sell their children, right? I'm talking about
it's part of the system. It's a systemic problem.
Okay, so that's, but also prevention means educating people, creating awareness, and also prevention with men. Because I was telling this to Doug as well. As much as I want to hate traffickers and Johns, the men who sell them, the men that buy them, they also are wounded. And I am not excusing their behavior. I believe in consequence and they should go to jail. But they also need to be, in prison. They let them watch TV and work out. They certainly can give them therapy. Let them get healed spiritually, right? And certainly get them off the streets. But what I think, if we had harsher punishment, which President Trump signed a few bills to make it much harsher on traffickers online, and he also signed another bill where to give money to survivors through nonprofit organizations. I mean, President Trump was really on the forefront of any president ever to support survivors from the sex trade, survivors from the sex trade. But I believe that the punishment needs to be so harsh, like, not for traffic. If you molest a child, prison for life. That's it. I even prefer Texas laws. I believe in the death penalty when things are that bad.
Yeah, can you imagine like somebody like the sexual abuse and then the organ trafficking could not get the death penalty?
I mean, that's crazy, isn't it?
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's
so
sick.
If it comes to children, they need to be put away immediately. But when it comes to Johns, the men who buy them, if they made, and this is so simple, if they made it where if they got caught by soliciting a child or a young woman, minimum $10,000 fine, even a $5,000 fine, and minimum 5 years in jail, which they won't do 5 years in jail. They would do 6 months or a year for good behavior or whatever, right? But what that means is that man has to go home and tell his wife, we need to pay 10 grand or 20 grand for a fine, and I have to go to jail. That means no money now is coming into that house and it costs them. There would be less men buying children. There'd be less men soliciting young women.
I mean, it goes across all sex trafficking, child sex trafficking, because a lot of these things, even though they're adults over 18, some of these Chinese bathhouses and even strippers and stuff, like they're trafficked, baby.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did you see my video on the Super Bowl video? Her name is Danielle Freytag. She's the founder of Action 169. And she used to be, in the strip club industry. And she basically was saying that strip club owners are glorified pimps because they definitely, that's it. They definitely pimp them out.
Oh yeah, it's only, the stripping is like, what do you call it? Kind of like a show for extra stuff you pay for later. Almost.
That's right. That's right. The owners of the strip clubs encourage these girls to leave the club with these men, to It's not
take a
just
little piece of
stripping.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I also have, hey, sorry, my dog is scratching. I also interviewed, I love her. Her name is Annie Lobert. She is the founder of Hookers for Jesus. She used to be a call girl in Vegas, and this was like in the 90s. And believe me, politicians, athletes, actors, she's had them all, right? And she has an amazing, she almost died though. You know, she got on drugs, of course, because that's what all survivors.
They're all on drugs. Yeah.
You have to. You'd have to be.
Oh, one more mention
You'd
too
have
is
to be.
also the porn industry. Tons of trafficking, tons of coercion. Did
Right.
you ever hear the story of Girls Do Porn? You hear that story in San Diego?
No.
Oh,
No.
yeah. Well, that's a whole nother story. But they weren't trafficked. They were coerced into coming to a different thing, and then they got coerced into porn. And the guy who was doing it fled out of the state, and the other two guys just got arrested. They just got sent to jail, but they were definitely, they weren't trafficking them. They were getting them in a position where they didn't have a choice but to do the sex scenes.
Yep. Yep. There's a survivor. She's also out, and her name is Madeline Marquette, I believe. I can't remember her name. Anyhow, she, you know, one thing I do know from interviewing these girls, they all have one thing in common. They were all molested as children. So it has already broken down their, like they don't own their body. They you know, they have no value of themselves because they're molested as children, right? Every single one were molested as children that I interviewed. And so it grooms them to then be vulnerable to a trafficker or to a pimp or to, do you know what I mean? Like it makes them where they walk right into that life. But anyhow, Madeline Marquette was molested as a child. She obviously she ran away at 16 and got right into the pornography world. And what she said was she actually, without her consent, she was gang raped while being filmed. They did snuff stuff without her consent while being filmed. And those the producers of the you know, her production company with the pornography they were putting out were selling her to huge mega pastors. My heart broke. My heart broke.
She was being sold to Christian.
Oh, he's
pastors?
already. It was a pastor out of Orange County. It's called something Rock Harbor, or no, wait, God, I hope I don't get it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong, but it was a pastor out of Orange County, huge mega pastor. He's been put in jail. He had to step down.
Was this a fairly recent story, or how long ago was this?
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So she right now is, you know, being interviewed a lot because they have tapes of her with all these elite politicians and Hollywood elite and blah, blah, blah. So she's testifying right now. She's already done 150 of them. So
good for her. Well, I mean, it's just so pervasive. It's just under the surface of people just aren't paying attention to these stories.
Yeah.
I was driving in LA, and I'm pretty sure I came across in kind of off of Western, a house where girls were being trafficked, and they pulled the people out and they got busted. I mean, it was amazing. Like, so these things are happening. There's like trafficking dens and things like that just under the surface, and a lot of the spas are trafficked. Those women are
massage parlors, spas, I mean, karaoke bars. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. You know, people were telling me, because I filmed at the Super Bowl, and they said, well, is it the players? Is it the NFL? Well, no, it's not the NFL or the players. It's, I mean, I don't know if the, I mean, you know, who was was it the coach? No, the owner of the Patriots.
It was the owner, Kraft.
The owner of the Patriots. So it does happen. But what I'm saying is traffickers take girls, children, and women to where there's men. So it's at big sports events, Super Bowl, Olympics. One of the girls that I interviewed, she's amazing. She was trafficked from 12 to 15, and she trains the FBI. She's a survivor advocate, and she's incredible. But she was trafficked from 12 to 15, and she said she used to look out the window and she would see families going to Disneyland while she was being raped by grown men. Now, why would this trafficker take her across the street from Disneyland? Because there's people.
Right. People on vacation, people with money. There's conferences, conference centers there, all that stuff.
That's another thing. People I'll go, oh, it can't be happening in Orange County. Well, I found out through my research and filming that all traffickers, they go on a circuit. They take girls cross line, but they go on a circuit and they all end up in Orange County and San Diego because there's more money to be made. It's an affluent area.
I've heard that too.
Yeah,
I heard that's how they they don't get caught, is that the girls are constantly shifted and moved every 3 or 4 months. No trace, fake names.
Yep.
On strip joints, whatever. And the guys are always the ones making the money. The girls don't have a choice.
I have a girl, and right now I'm actually doing the video for YouTube with her in it. She's not a girl. She's a woman now. She's probably 45, 50. But when she was a girl, she was abducted, and she was taken to a ranch in Palm Springs. When she arrived, there were children there from 2 to like 17 years old. They had guards. They put these children immediately on drugs so that they're dependent and addicted. And they put them behind this glass, is like a two-way, like the kids couldn't see out, but customers could see in. And so all she could do was hear. And she would constantly hear, yes, Senator, yes, Congressman. This is some sick.
I think that Epstein and his network subverted so many people in power. And it goes back, like Barney Frank said, there was a gay prostitution ring. There were other people, but the girl, Virginia Giuffre's story, really, she was trafficked. Her autobiography, she mentions names like George Mitchell and Richardson out of, I think it's New Mexico. Like big names, people in power in administrations that she slept with. And they went on to important positions at the UN and things like that. So this is just one tiny little figment, one piece of Epstein.
I mean, look what happened just yesterday. And they've been on this. They've been talking about it forever, and it finally got on the Senate floor. But the gymnast who are calling out the FBI for,
like they should have known, right? The FBI should have known he was. People were on it, right? That guy molested. I mean, he abused hundreds of kids too, right? Like,
and the girl and the survivor, when she was on the floor yesterday, and she nailed it. She said he was a pedophile. Those little gymnasts, they're young girls.
Right. They're all
12, 13, 14, 15. And even if they are 16 or 17, they're petite and little. They look like little girls. Do you know what I mean?
Right. They're little. They're usually like 5 feet tall, 90 pounds or whatever. Yeah. I got a question from Amber. She says, how are they advertising these kids? I can't see them walking the streets like
online. You know that there's oh God, I don't know the name of it, and it's
Backpage.
No, well, it used to be on Backpage a lot. No, there's God, it's like a furniture. It's out of Walmart, but it's
I heard that the furniture there was fake. They were actually selling kids or whatever.
Yeah, don't say
the descriptions.
Like a chair, $7,000, and what that $7,000 means is you can buy a 7-year-old for $7,000.
Was that ever proved that those were kids, or was that just?
It absolutely is.
Okay.
It absolutely, and I don't want to. What is it? I can't think of. I'm so sorry. I don't know the name of it, but it's some
Wayfair.
kind of.
Lee says it's Wayfair was the story.
That's it. Thank you.
Let me pull it up. Oh yeah, it's so crazy. Can I read this story to you? This is about J. Paul Getty and him trafficking kids with Ferdinand Marcos. It's from. I'll put it up on. Let me see if I can put it up on here. You can read along, but this just kind of verifies your story. Let's see it. Can you see this?
Let's dear, that camera wasn't good.
Is that a little too close? Let's go back over here. This is from Crazy Days and Nights, January 3rd, 2018. Slightly over 3 decades ago, there was a meeting on a yacht in the Med. A very important meeting. Things were dire, and the whole escapade was crumbling and was going to leave some very important people with some very public egg on their face. Attending the meeting were several world leaders, 2 of the richest people in the world, and several others, all of whom were being catered to by a group of teens from the country of one of the world leaders. The focus of their discussion was half a world away. To see what they were discussing, we need to take a step back. In the late 1960s and early 70s, G was one of the wealthiest men in the world. Although he could have had anyone in the world to have sex with, G enjoyed the company of young girls, very, very young girls. Under 10 was his preferred. He imported the girls from a foreign country and housed them in the annex of his home, which he reached via an underground tunnel. The girls were supplied by a very close friend of his, who we will call M. It turns out M also had a love of young girls and provided them to other people like G all over the world. In return, M was protected in power and also enriched himself personally from these men who gave him gifts of not only cash, but also paintings by the masters and so much more. They also arranged for other governments to prop his up in the face of rebellion. When G died, things started to go downhill. Although one of his children was also a fan of the young girls and availed himself frequently, he also ended up taking things too far, and some of the girls ended up dead. J had also had some big drug issues. It was not of the same caliber, connection-wise, that G had been. J was also under a great deal of pressure from the siblings and bankers to do something with the annex to the house, the same annex where the young girls were located. Fast forward a few years, the same men in power like G that had helped prop up M were all dying off. They were being replaced by other men who had their focus on other areas of the world. All too often, they didn't care about young girls and had other vices that they could fulfill from other dictators. The problem was what to do about all the girls all over the world that were in place or dead. That was the purpose of the meeting on the yacht. What was decided that everyone who had a girl in their possession could keep them in place but could never let them go. If they wanted them killed, they could send them to Jay and he would make arrangements to kill them. In total, about 50 of those girls were killed. They were dumped beneath the foundation of an addition to the annex, which was built several miles from the original annex. If you ever want to know why a hit was never put out on both the spouse of M or any of his own kids, it is because that meeting of the yacht was recorded via audio and video. And so that was it. So that was the story. Yeah. G was J. Paul Getty, M. Ferdinand Marcos, spouse of Imelda Marcos, J. Paul Getty Jr., and the Getty Center and the Getty Center monorail. So that's supposedly the story. I found Crazy Days and Nights to be pretty reliable, but this is just a story of like international sex trafficking of underage kids, very wealthy people.
That's right. You know, the girl that I told you that was trafficked and taken to that underground world underneath the Getty Museum, guess who she met?
Nothing would really surprise me, honestly.
Senator Joe Biden. Yeah. When he was a senator.
Well, I mean, if that's the way he is, his son didn't fall far from the tree. That's for sure.
And who knows? Maybe he trafficked his own son. It's why he's all fucked up on drugs. Who knows?
He is so strange. His tattoos are like somebody who came out of like mind control. Have you seen his weird tattoos of the lakes, the Finger Lakes of New York on his back? I mean, just really strange behavior. Like he is not normal. He's not normal.
No.
Yeah. So anyway,
I am, William, in shock that, well, first of all, how much evil there is, and especially at the top with the elites. But I'm so in shock that people didn't see the truth of the past 4 years and what the radical left has done. The division they've created, the nonstop crushing people, their careers and their life. I mean, they're relentless. I mean, the last 2 years, I mean, the reason I had to edit these videos is get my mind off. I could not believe the rioting that was going on and lighting businesses on fire and killing business owners. And I mean, this is crazy. And they allowed it and celebrated it.
Hey, your vice president, the current vice president, was organizing to get bail money to get these people out of jail. So that should terrify you.
And many of them, Kamala Harris was one, and a few other, what's the other one? Waters, I think. Anyways, but they were like encouraging it and get out there and it's not going to stop. It won't stop. Sure. And then they, you know, I can't take hypocrisy. I can't take hypocrisy. I can't.
Yeah, so we're in a very unfortunate position right now. So we're at about 50 minutes. Where's the best place for people to see I've seen your documentary. It's excellent. The short, definitely worth watching. Where can people watch that? Where can people see what else you're working on?
Yes. So I want to be clear though, my project, because my project is not political. It is because both Democrats and Republicans have bought children, or you know what I mean? It's a spiritual issue. What my project is though, is to hear these survivors' voices. It's to create awareness so people, I mean, when you hear somebody's story, how can you not be moved and have a call to action to step in and help in any way you can? So my intention is to create awareness and a call to action. It's to highlight these nonprofit Christian organizations that are doing incredible work, that are preventing, restoring, rescuing, restoring, reintegrating. I even interviewed, you know, many like congressmen and judges and DAs, and to talk about the prosecution. So my project has really covered the issue from A to Z. So it's about creating awareness. Please share, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and share the videos. Also, William right now is showing you on my website, this is the tab that says partners. And on this tab are all the nonprofit organizations I have partnered with. So when you click on that logo, it'll take you to their website, and you can, you know, it'll resonate with you which one you feel is doing where you would like to help, you know, whether it's in prevention, rescue, restoration, reintegration, or more importantly, if it's in your city, if it's in your state. So all of these nonprofits I have partnered with, and please feel free to go to my website, 26secondsdoc.com. You're going to post it, right, William?
Absolutely. 26 seconds. And that's also the title of your YouTube channel, where you have all those resources, right? And
I would like to share what that is before we, what the title means. Every 26 seconds, a child's trafficked globally. Horrific, but I actually think that that number is far less, because again, we do not know the numbers online. We do not know the numbers with all this underground child trafficking. So that's just the statistic that they have. And I actually think it's far less, which is horrific. Also, on my website, you can, you know, on the homepage, it'll say, you know, it'll have a logo for the YouTube. So that'll take you to my YouTube channel. Also, there's a donate button and it'll take you to my funding campaign. If you'd like to donate to help, I'm still raising funding for post-production so I can finish the feature documentary, which will include all 9 countries. I don't think I told you to, I don't think we got to it, but I also shot, obviously, the border issue, Mexico City, and then here in the US. So those were the 9 countries I filmed in.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you can be contacted through your website, correct?
Yes, there's a tab that says contact, and my email's there. And yeah, absolutely, you can contact me directly.
Great. Again, it's Kelly Galindo. The documentary is 26 seconds. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, William, for having me on your platform.
Stay there. I'm going to stay in the bar.
All right.